Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Black Wall Street Legacy Fest. We're here live from the Greenwood Culture Center. I got my man Bobby eating with me. This next segment is gonna be crazy. You know why? Because it's Black Wall Street to Black Wall Street to Black Tech Street. I'm gonna say it again. Black Wall Street to Black Tech Street. Bobby.
Hey man, that's what it's all about. Hey you guys. Hey,
are you techie or what, Bobby? Are you a techie guy?
I'm a kind of techie guy, old techie guy. You know,
I love technology.
Hey, that's all right though. But hey, we're going to do this panel right quick. And we have, let me introduce the panel to you right quick. Tyrance Billingsley. Tyrance?
What's going on, y'all? Good to see y'all.
All right, Cedric Igpo.
Good afternoon, good afternoon.
Lawrence Watkins.
Hey everybody, how y'all doing today?
And Mikhail Vaughn.
Hey everybody.
And the moderator, Brentum Todd.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
All right, take it away, Brentum.
I appreciate you, Mr. Bobby. And thank you guys, and welcome again to From Black Wall Street to Black Tech Street. I'd be remiss if I did not take a second to just thank Dr. Tiffany Crutcher and the Terrence Crutcher Foundation and all that they've done to put on this time. We can give them a hand. It means so much for them to be able to hold space to honor the descendants and the survivors of the 1921 race massacre. And so this next conversation I am very excited about. Before we get into it though, I want to hold a few ground rules. Obviously we're going to be having a great conversation up here, but you all are not just spectators. If you all hear something that you enjoy, go ahead and interact, go ahead and clap, go ahead and cheer these guys on, because they're doing stuff and breaking ground in spaces that are really going to change the future for Black Wall Street. So feel free to interact. And then secondly, we want you guys to be able to ask some questions toward the end. So write those down, make sure that you have a few, and at the end we'll have a space to be able to allow you all to participate in the conversation as well. So with that, from Black Wall Street to Black Tech Street, this is talking about a conversation where Black Wall Street 100 years ago was burned to the ground, and 100 years later, a new movement has started in Greenwood to rebirth Black Wall Street. We get a chance to hear from tech entrepreneurs and people in this space to hear how they are working and contributing to the rebirth of Black Wall Street through technology as we go from Black Wall Street to Black Tech Street. So again, we have Mikhail Vaughn from Urban Coders Guild. We have Mr. Cedric Igbo from the OKC Thunder Fellows, Lawrence Watkins from Attentive Capital, and Tyrance Billingsley from Black Tech Street itself. Thank you guys for participating again. All right, so I'm gonna start out with a question, and it's pretty broad for all of you to take a chance to take a stab at. And so my first question is, why do you believe tech is a great medium to rebirth Black Wall Street?
I'll go ahead. I was going to give Michael know that too, so I was going to let him do it. But so yeah, well, before we get into that, I first and foremost want to acknowledge that we had two women we were tracking to be on this panel. They couldn't make it, so it's very important to talk about, as we talk about equity in tech, we can't leave that part out. So we apologize for that. So, and how y'all thinking we just had men up here? It wasn't like that. But tech, I believe, is the perfect medium to rebirth Black Wall Street, because, Black Wall Street was about two key things. It was about collaboration and then wealth building. And one of the reasons and one of the ways that Black Tech Street was conceived was by asking the question, what might Black Wall Street have been had it been supported and not destroyed? And part of why I singled out the tech industry is because tech is one of the only industries you can build intergenerational wealth in 7 to 10 years via successful company exits. It's the core medium through which most global innovation and the creation of new wealth-generating markets is typically happening every year, and that by the year 2030, there will be 4.3 million vacant, high-paying tech jobs due to a tech talent shortage. So all three of those different elements kind of make tech the perfect industry and the perfect medium for a kind of a renaissance, a new resurgence of Black people collaborating and working together. And what was Black Wall Street if not that? So I think that's kind of why tech is the perfect medium to get back to what we lost at Black Wall Street.
So awesome. Michael, do you want to add anything?
So I totally agree, and that's, for me, the entry point. I think about the entry point being our youth, being able to take the time now to develop talent for this workforce. I also think about how our students really are plugged into tech in a way that even as young as we are up on stage, that they're just that much more tech enabled. But we have a lot of tech consumers, but not necessarily tech producers. And I want to give our young people the opportunity to become not just content producers, but also platform producers as well. And that's important for us when we think about Black Tech Street.
So awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, ditto. Like, I work with a lot of 9th and 10th graders right now, and they're always on their phones. They're creating content on YouTube. They're playing with apps, downloading all the time. And so that's one of the things Michael just said, something I tell them all the time. Don't just be a consumer, but how can you be a producer, right? Like, if you are always on your phone, there are some revenue generating opportunities for you, some job opportunities for you. If you're able to take that and learn kind of the nuts and bolts behind it, learning how to code, how to create these things, to create opportunities not only for yourself, but also for others around you. So, I mean, tech isn't going anywhere. It's more integrated into everything that we do, and so why can't we be a part of that wave?
Yeah, so I'll take a little bit of a different angle on that. I would venture to say that tech has always been a part of value creation in Black Wall Street, right? So if we think about value creation and the creation of wealth, I go back to even Henry Ford back in the early 1900s with the Model T. That was technology for its time, right? So we don't think about car companies until Tesla, right, in terms of that being a part of technology and the value creation, the creation of wealth, and the creation of something new. But that was tech in the early 1900s, was the creation of the Model T. And then what came after that was General Motors and so on and so forth. So what we're seeing right now is just a resurgence, a reiteration of technology, which we see with internet technology and how it's like really expanded so far. And you also see what's coming on along with like Web3 and those types of things as well, right? So that is what's happening. It's just the same thing happening, but we're in the iteration of the internet and now Web3, and we'll see what happens after that. But it's always been a part of Black Tech Street. It's always been a part of Black Wall Street. It's just that we are seeing now it happening with internet technologies. But what makes this different is the fact that internet technologies are infinitely scalable, right? So someone who is 17, 18, 19 years old can start a business from scratch with very little cost associated with it, where 15, 20, 30, 50 years ago, that just wasn't possible at all.
Lawrence, I want to tap into that just a little bit more. You touched on it, but a lot of people hear the word tech and they think of computers and zeros and ones and they're like, I'm checked out. So for the people who may not truly know what tech is, give us just a breakdown of what is tech today.
Yeah, I mean, tech today comes in so many different forms, right? I mean, one is internet technologies. We see that often. But it can also be with energy, right? There's a lot of solar technology that's out, renewable energies. We are in an existential crisis right now as it relates to our energy for this particular planet. Environment, so technologies that will allow us to be sustainable on this planet. That's a form of technology that is out right now as well, right? So technologies are those things in the forefront that are extremely needed for us to continue to create value as a society, but then also to thrive and to be sustainable as a society as well.
And one thing that I would add to that is, and I appreciate that you bring up that point about people running. What I want Black people and so many people to really understand is that when I say tech in the tech industry, I don't just mean technical roles. 47% of all roles in the tech industry are now non-technical roles, according to Glassdoor and some other sources. And all of these have the incredible pay potential that a lot of the tech roles do. So you're talking about program managers, writers. There's a lot of different roles in tech that have skill sets that are interchangeable with people who don't necessarily come from tech backgrounds. And if you actually look at the trends, most of the founders of these multi-billion-dollar tech companies are not themselves coders or things like that. A lot of times they're just visionaries, they're creatives, and they're people with business minds. So when we say tech, don't think we want you to learn how to code if you want to do that. But don't think, oh, I don't know how to code, or oh, I'm not good at math, that means it's not for me. Not only is there a space for you, arguably some of the greatest people who've excelled in this industry have not had that skill. So that's part of why it's very important that we all understand that, because we miss out on a lot of different opportunities. A lot of people in our community are creatives, and the creative class has been deemed as one of the best industries to get into tech from because of the similarities in how you have to think and figure out problems. So there's room for everybody in tech, not just the people who you conventionally think of as being good with computers and things like that.
If I could add one thing to what Lawrence and Tyron said, whether we all realize it or not, we all work in tech, some of us more directly, but the rest of us work in tech-enabled jobs, tech-adjacent jobs. I'm looking out the audience. Most of us have been on a Zoom call. We've had to figure that out, right? And so we all work in tech, and so I really think about just those skill sets that we all need to work on in order to advance our careers. I think about computer science because that's my particular lane. I also think about project management because that's actually what I'm certified to do. But all of us, whether we know it or not, work in tech and have to adopt part of this digital revolution that we're in.
And then in my world, I mentioned with Oklahoma City Thunder and the Thunder Fellows, trying to teach them how technology can create competitive advantages, both on the business side, but also on the sports side. And so in sports, you hear the term moneyball, right? Like how you assign value to certain players, how you prepare for certain opponents, things like that. These are all technology woven into the game of sports and to create these competitive advantages. And so we try to expose them to different opportunities, engaging them with different folks from the Thunder basketball operations team or the business intelligence team to see how they're able to take insight or intel and then use that to think creatively to produce solutions. And so it's not only it's one thing to be able to mine data, but it's another thing to interpret data, right? And so in half the battle sometimes is being able to take data that you, like raw data, and interpret it to non-data people. And so we try to also show just the different levels and layers that are involved in this space.
I love that. And I kind of want to lean into you two down here, and really all of you. You all are really taking the opportunity to expose people to tech at a young age in high school and different things like that. I kind of want to go back for each one of you and ask, what was your introduction to tech and how did you get into this world?
I'm going to force Michael to go because he's the OG. He was in this before anybody, so go ahead, Michael.
Are you calling me old?
I was hoping
OG.
you wouldn't notice that, but go ahead.
Early adapter, early adapter.
So for me, I really go back to, I think it was in 1992. My parents, right? My parents, my mom bought me a computer. It was one of those old school computers. It really didn't do much. I learned how to make a website on that computer. I also learned how to use the internet, how to use, I think it was star 67 to disable call waiting so I could actually download things on the internet. It was a different time, so being able to help my students see just the transition that we have made in 30 years is tremendous. I think about where we'll be 30 years from now, but that really was my introduction in tech. It was, that first computer I didn't have a computer room, but it sat on my computer, so I had to figure out how to use it, how to break it, how to put it together, how to change my email addresses so I could get another AOL 30-day trial. Yeah, that was my introduction.
For me, I love playing like Connects. I'm gonna age myself too. I don't know if anybody remembers that. Connects. So you could like build like helicopters and different things and put motors in it. I'm Nigerian, so my parents always wanted me to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. So I thought, all right, I got the engineer route going down that path. I didn't really love it like that. I was always kind of, naturally sort of gifted in the STEM space, but that was really my first thing. I wasn't disassembling any computers. I would have had a hard time trying to deal with that. But that was really what it was: building things, just trying to see how things worked, just mechanics of things. So that was really my introduction in middle school.
Yeah, so for me, it was around the same time period. I would say ninth grade was the year that things started to really change for me with regards to technology. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky originally. And in Louisville, we have a program called the Black Achievers Program. So every other Saturday, we would get up really early in the morning and go hang out with other kids and learn with other kids who had similar interests that we did. And one of their, cohort programs was for engineering. So I remember just going to different places, different companies out there doing technological stuff, and learning from them. But woven into that question for me is linked between when I got interested in technology and also when I got interested in entrepreneurship. And it's around that same time with a mentor, just a random person from our church took a liking to me. Turned out he played in the NFL and he played in the Canadian Football League for a while. His name's Carl Brazeley, but he was the one who got me deeply interested in entrepreneurship and changed my mindset in regards to what does it mean to be a business owner and work for yourself. But from there, tech was just blowing up everywhere at that particular moment in time, and just being a kid during that time period and the emergence of the internet, you just are already kind of immersed into technology as well. So that's how it was for me.
Yeah, for me, it was a process. So my informal introduction to technology was when I was really young. I used to love watching this show called Jimmy Neutron. This little kid used to be building stuff, and I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And as I got a little bit older, my father, he had this habit of handing me magazines of people who were in business, and I remember seeing this funny-looking cat standing next to a computer. I was like, who is Bill Gates? Who is this cat? And that first piqued my interest, but my actual intro in sixth grade, I actually took a course called Intro to Technology with William Arler at Carver Middle School, where we actually learned about, things like how do you program. We had these mini robots and it was really remedial about, how do you make them take this step and that step, but then also, was really thinking about, also had us doing things like building Rube Goldberg machines and, figuring out how things work. And that was really what trained me to think like a technologist, to say, okay, what's the problem? How do you solve it? And how can these things be leveraged in different ways to make us solving it more effective? Because, at the end of the day, tech it's a tool to make the human mind even more effective when used correctly. We don't always use it correctly. It probably has the opposite effect in a lot of ways today, but that was kind of my intro to tech, and it's kind of been going ever since.
And I could have a similar story, but I had the computers, but then the dial-up just took too long, and I didn't have the patience. So I went the sports route, and I am not the tech guy, but I'm tech adjacent, as you said before. So I appreciate that, and thank y'all for sharing how you guys got into it. I want to kind of go over into the realm of something you mentioned about the wealth creation. And in a recent U.S. Federal Reserve study, they said that the average white family has 8 times the wealth of the typical black family. So my question is, how does technology help close the wealth gap in this community, which was once the wealthiest in the United States?
Yeah, so
in this black community.
In this black community, again, and this is why it starts with getting people interested in tech. One of the areas of tech we've recently began to focus more on is cybersecurity, because cybersecurity doesn't necessarily require some of the more in-depth technical understanding, but it does require you to be good at problem solving. Introductory cybersecurity jobs a lot of times at one of the companies we're talking to, the starting pay is $150,000. And that is and many of these roles are not requiring college degrees. This is what I mean. And you see things like this all throughout the industry, whether it be the workforce, and as Lawrence spoke about, you being a tech entrepreneur, being able to break into create a business for relatively little money, I mean, there is so much earning potential. So if you have young people scaling these companies and exiting them I mean, even if it's not billions of dollars, just exiting them for some millions of dollars, and they're exiting in their communities, and then they're putting that money back into their community, that's how you get the cycle going. And then if you have people going through Urban Coders Guild and Thunder Fellows, and then getting jobs in the workforce, making six figures, I mean, imagine what it would be like if that becomes the norm. And if that happens in enough communities across the country, that racial wealth gap isn't going to be there for that much longer. So, I mean, that's part of why there's so much passion around this for me and most of the people you see up here, all of them.
Yeah, so, the phrase that comes to my mind to succinctly answer that question is ownership at the forefront of innovation. That's what it's going to take to close the racial wealth gap using technology, right? Because I keep coming back to this thing of innovation, and technology is always at the forefront of that. Tyrants touched on a piece of that with like the tech jobs, because if you have the skill set that people don't, it's supply and demand. If you have a skill set that most people don't have because it's something new that's coming into demand, and you have that skill set to fulfill it, chances are you're going to get paid more for that particular type of job. But when we start talking about wealth and asset creation, assets and ownership are inextricably linked as well, right? Like, you owning assets is what's going to create that wealth for you long term, all right? So it's not enough for us to just have the skill set to go work for others in the tech space. That's going to help out a little bit from a family perspective, but we're talking about generational wealth for communities, rebuilding Black Wall Street, rebuilding into Black Tech Street. It's going to take a level of ownership and capital to actually make that happen. So ownership at the forefront of innovation is what's going to be necessary to close that gap.
Take a little different approach. Everything you guys said is spot on, but I also think when you're talking generational wealth, I look at myself and what I didn't know growing up, particularly around like financial literacy and how technology is woven into that as well, and just understanding the time value of money, understanding how money and the dollar accumulates over time, investments, etc. So again, everything you said is spot on, but right when we're talking about technology and investing and financial literacy, I think those are also important things to consider when we're shoring up our skills for jobs, but also then what do we do when we have that money, right? And how do we make it tangible? Wealth and intergenerational wealth, a tangible thing. And so I did want to just mention that as well, because I think that's something that we don't talk about as much, and it's definitely not being taught in schools. And so I want to just make sure that that point is mentioned.
So good.
And if I could add one more thing, I think about a certain scarcity mindset. I think about when we struggle day to day to make ends meet, it narrows our choices, right? And so I think about being able to be in a position where I'm making $70,000, just on the low end, $200,000, $300,000. I'm no longer worrying about how I'm going to eat or how my kids are going to, have the necessities. At that point, I actually can think about, I have all of this extra money. I'm going to buy this house. I'm going to invest in cryptocurrency or whatever else. But I think about the thing is called the hierarchy of needs. And Maslow, somebody said it. I appreciate it. I forgot that first part. But money isn't the end-all, be-all. Owning a tech company, for me, no disrespect, owning a tech company or even working in a tech company isn't necessarily the end-all, be-all. It is being able to have those resources, those financial resources, to let us move up that ladder.
Man, all of those are so key and vitally important to move us forward. And the way that tech helps us do that is really fast-tracking for all of us. And so I'm really excited. And the question that I have next is really to know what you all are specifically doing in your areas to help us really adopt tech. And so what is your organization doing to make us go from Black Wall Street to Black Tech Street? We'll start back with you, Micah.
Okay, so for me, we operate currently as an after-school program. Our longer-term goal is to actually be in the school during the day, but it is providing tangible, hands-on experience. Our students are learning web development, which is very easy entry point. They're learning mobile app development, which is a lot of fun. It's an easier entry point as well, but it's still something that is a needed industry. They're also learning game design, which is something that they all love. They're learning cybersecurity. So we're really starting them young. We start them in middle school, but what we really need to do is start them even younger. We make a joke about cradle to career, and I make a joke about like actual babies, but I know what it's like to be 22, 25, and have that first job interview or that job description that asks for 10 years work experience. Where are you going to get that? Unless you have started really, really young. And so that's what we're in the business of doing.
I work for the Thunder Fellows program, another free after-school program, exclusively for Black youth in Tulsa, high school and college. But we're in the first year of the program right now, and we're teaching them really focusing on data and analytics. And so I think the creative thinking, problem solving, using data to drive and inform your decisions around different things. But we're also weaving in coding, robotics, etc. But all with the goal of creating these career pipelines. Talk about cradle to career, trying to create these career pipelines within the sports, entertainment, and technology industries. And so, obviously, with being a part of the Oklahoma City Thunder and Creative Artists Agency, it makes sense. It's kind of our natural lane to try to focus on those spaces. But I mean, we've learned and also taught kids that if you are able to understand the fundamentals of technology, the possibilities are endless, and tech touches every bit of every business and industry. And so, but we just kind of have our specific niche of within the sports and entertainment space. So last thing I'll say on that is that we also try to provide immersive experiences within those industries, expose them to different people and executives and leaders within those spaces with the goal of when it's time for them to graduate, they're not just another name or within the pile of resumes, that there is already a professional and peer network that they're able to lean on and leverage so that they're able to just kind of fast track that entry into those industries.
Yeah, so I'll start with my personal mission statement. So my mission is to organize and facilitate the flow of capital to entities that will ultimately improve the Black community worldwide. So everything that I do actually goes through that particular lens. And I guess the current manifestation of that is working as an investor for Attentive Capital. So Attentive, we invest in the underinvested. So that can either be by race, it can be by gender, it can also be by geography. But those who normally don't have the resources, the financial resources to actually build a high growth startup. And when we say high growth startup, meaning can this company get to $100 million revenue in the next, call it 5 to 7 years, right? That's what we're looking for in terms of investing. So when you think about the large companies out there like the Googles and the Facebooks and all those of the world, they did that. They had that type of scale that quickly. But those were built on the coast in San Francisco. We're looking to find those underrepresented founders, those founders who are underappreciated, and helping to invest in them and to help them grow and scale, so we can create the next Google for this generation, whatever that might be as well. Before I started at Attentive, which I've only been at about 4 months, I was the president and chief operating officer of the Black Business School. So at the Black Business School, we don't help you just climb the corporate ladder, we help you build your own as well. So we help African Americans to obtain a culturally relevant yet practical education in all things wealth building at an affordable price. I started the business with my brother. His name's Dr. Boyce Watkins. So he causes a lot of ruckus on YouTube a lot of times, but we started that. We've scaled it. Through technology, we were able to scale in something that we never could have done in a physical environment. We've educated over 150,000 people on our platform in the last 5 years. That would have never happened before technology, right? So, so that's what I'm currently doing.
All of this, that's beautiful. Just want to say from all three of them. So currently, what Black Tech Street is actually doing is something called In 2031. So we're actually looking to build a strategy for creating a Black tech ecosystem here in Tulsa, and we're actually incorporating a collaboration of most of the entities you see up here on this panel: Brentum, Michael, got Cedric, chased down Lawrence, and I got him to commit on live TV. So no, I'm playing. But so what we're essentially doing is we're creating a plan with a lot of the different entities to figure out what are certain factors that we can affect that if we tip them over, they'll have a domino effect on getting us towards this thriving Black tech ecosystem. And we're kind of defining that as an ecosystem of businesses and institutions working together to use technology as a means of economic freedom and community well-being. So that's actually something I would love for many of you to be able to get involved with. I've been working with, Greg Robinson on that, Christy Williams, Vanessa, all these people over there. So if y'all want to hound them as soon as this is over about how y'all can get involved, go ahead and do that. But working with these entities, a lot of these people up here, I think that's the way we can collaboratively, build this vision, because one entity or one person can't do it. It's got to be a coalition of a lot of different people, something I learned from Michael and a lot of other people. So we got to work together to figure that out.
I think we can give a hand for the efforts that are happening currently here. I have a few more questions, and I want you guys to get ready for a Q&A as well. If you got a question in your mind, just go ahead and hold that and be ready. But the next question I have is, how can we, as tech industry leaders, get Black people to fully embrace the tech industry? And as you guys are thinking on it for a second, we all have phones, we all have things that we embrace that are a part of tech, but how can we fully embrace the tech industry?
One of the hills that I consistently die on when it comes to this is, it all starts with a different narrative. Because when you think about a tech entrepreneur, you think about somebody white and somebody who may already come from a pretty wealthy background. And you may think of one or two minorities, but when you think successful tech entrepreneur, like how many Black ones would even come to mind? So it starts, and they do exist, but are they out there in the narrative? So it starts with changing the narrative that tells young Black kids, you could be the founder of a billion-dollar tech company. You need to look in the mirror and say, I could be the technologist that helps to develop a solution to climate change or some of these other issues. So it starts with changing the idea of what somebody in tech looks like, what they do, what they're interested in. There's not only one image of what it looks like to be somebody smart and to be somebody in a certain industry. And perpetuating that is the reason why tech is arguably the least diverse industry in America, even though it is the fastest growing and most economically influential.
If I could hop on that, because I'm definitely feeling what you're saying. It's about changing that narrative. And there are very few visible, vocal, Black tech CEOs, CTOs. But I think about Urban Coders Guild, and especially that last word. An old world guild, you had an apprentice who started at the beginning. On the other end, you had a master craftsman who was teaching and leading and mentoring. And so when I think about changing that narrative, I think about working with the really young folks, Urban Coders Guild, working with kids, but also thinking about folks like us being mentors for these kids, being able to let them see, I have done this and I have been successful to a certain extent. These are the roads that I walked, the challenges that I faced, starting young, but also us, the 4 of us, 5 of us, and everybody out here being mentors to our kids.
To speak on that real quick, we are clearly, as Black people, behind, right? There's significant gaps educationally, on the wealth side, so these sorts of efforts, that sort of mentoring is important to be able to close the gap, to expedite that process, because, if we just allow it to happen naturally, we'll never catch up. So it's important that we are intentional and try to provide those shortcuts and shorten that time frame to reach that equality. So I totally agree. I also think, kind of going back to what was said earlier, just exposure to the different entry points within the different spaces using technology. I realize that I'm kind of speaking outside of my mouth here, in that obviously I work in the sports and entertainment space, and those are the people who our kids look up to the most. They don't look up to the creator of Calendly. They don't look up to the people these black people who created these billion-dollar companies. And so, how do we lift those folks up and create them to be the image that our young people want to be? How do we bring them proximate to our young people so it's tangible? And so I think it's really on us to create those avenues to change those narratives and expose them to what that looks like. But then the last thing I'll say is, being in the sports and entertainment industry, I initially went to school for sports or kinesiology. So, and there's a lot of sports science, and that goes into kind of connected to the health space, connected to athletics, and so just understanding the different types of ways in which technology touches our everyday lives. And a lot of our kids want to be hoopers, or they want to play ball, but chances are slim. I'm not trying to crush your dreams, but there are other ways into it, whether it be in the medical side, whether it be as a coach, whether it be as a data analyst. And so it's on us to really highlight those different opportunities and at an early age, so that they can at least have plans B through J, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add. I think you all covered it pretty good on that front. So yeah, narrative. I would say narrative and exposure are really the two big things, and having it relate to things that people already care about, and people already have an emotional attachment to, like sports, entertainment, that type of thing as well.
So important, and I think we all play a role in that. Even everyone in the audience and watching online, each one of us can have a piece to play to change that narrative, to add the exposure, and really grow tech for our culture to truly, fully embrace it. So before I go to our last question, I want to open it up to the audience just to ask a few questions. So if you have a question, Mr. Bobby Eaton has the mic up here, and he can come to you. If you can raise your hand if you have a question for our panel. We have two over here and one over there.
Good afternoon. I am curious. I have a 19-year-old, loves tech, went to an all-boys school in Houston. The whole crew loves tech. But being able to connect through summer programs, after-school programs, mentoring programs for people in big old Houston has been hard. And we just built Silicon Valley, the Houston Silicon Valley with the Innovation District. And so I would be curious to find out if you could share a website or resources where young people can actually connect so that they can have these mentoring opportunities and these learning opportunities.
So there's Urban Coders Guild for the younger folks, middle schools, high school, starting with sixth graders. I'm not going to speak for Cedric, but he has an awesome program for the older kids. And then when we think about the older kids at 18 and up, there is Hobarton School, shout out right here, but there's Hobarton School. So there are really entry points for every grade level. I know you said, if I heard correctly, you said your son was 19, and so there's an opportunity for an entry point there. I will say that I like the kids. I'm going to start there. But if you're an older kid, 41 or older, there's still some opportunities for you to jump in as well.
How do you all think that we get, can you hear me? How do you all think that we can get more girls into tech, and especially black girls into tech? And also, who are the three or the women that were supposed to be here today? Can you say?
So we had Kelsey Davis. You familiar?
I'm curious.
Yeah, we had Kelsey Davis, and I was chasing down Edna Martinson.
But to answer
my bad. I didn't even answer the question. Go ahead.
To answer your question, I mean, there's plenty of programs, some national ones, Girls Who Code, Black Girls Code as well. I think to Michael's point, and Michael's selling his influence short in that he's being very intentional about trying to create these touch points and pipelines locally, so that no matter where you are in Tulsa, what grade you are there, it's clearly outlining what those opportunities are throughout your educational continuum through college. And so we're not there yet, right? I think we're in the process of building that out and outlining that, but that issue has been identified, and trying, Michael is helping lead the way to make sure that kids around the city, but beyond that, are also kind of aware of what those opportunities are.
If I could add one other piece, I feel really fortunate that a third of my young people are young women. But I will say part of that is because we have a woman who is leading the classes. And so I'll go back to my earlier point, being able to be mentors, being able to be leaders, instructors. One of my instructors last summer was a young woman. And so having women show up, you don't have to necessarily be in tech. We could teach enough tech to teach these babies, whether they be babies in our programs or the babies y'all have at home.
Hi, Joyce Brown. This is a really very enlightening conversation, and I appreciate every last one of you coming and sharing your vision for starting with the young people and getting them involved. I would also like to ask, there are people who are lifelong learners. You touched on it, 41. There are people who are 50, people who are in their 60s, lifelong learners. So I would hope that sometime we could have a person up there who represents a lifelong learner or that age group, because they do like to learn about tech also. Don't basically exclude us.
Absolutely, and I would actually add, there's actually a couple of programs coming, whether it be through the Cyber and Analytics Skills Center at Tulsa Community College, and there's one other one that I'm blanking on, but there are programs that are specifically for people who are older and are trying to transfer from other careers to get into tech. So again, very permeable barrier, not something that's exclusive.
And here in Tulsa, you mentioned it earlier, but Holberton School does not have an age limit, and there's also provisions for people to be able to go into Holberton and not pay cost up front, and low barrier to entry for people to get involved. So many opportunities for our more seasoned people in age to be able to get involved in technology as well.
And if I could add just one more thing, sorry to put you on the spot, but if you have questions about our lifelong learners, if you have questions about Holberton, there is a representative from Holberton here. Hey, Cassidy. So feel free to ask her some questions. I just put you on the spot completely, but she's here to answer some questions about those lifelong learning experiences.
Great. We're all flowing right into the vein of where I was going. I got excited when you talked about lifelong learners, because I feel like it's important to deal with our youth and make sure that they're well-skilled and well-versed, but I think we're missing an awesome opportunity, and what we just went through with the pandemic showed us that. There are training programs in different states geared towards adults who are retooling and retraining, and I wanted to know more about how we tap into that talent. So you all just began to touch on it, but that all goes to certification and affordable certification. And I don't want to call out any program by name, but Google seems to be a well-known one. I wonder if you have any thoughts about some of their entry-level training certification programs or any other that are offered.
Patrick?
I can't say that I'm too familiar with a wide breadth of those certification programs, but you mentioned the Google one. Google happens to be one of the partners for our program, and we try to figure out ways in which we could create opportunities for our kids to, like tangible opportunities for our kids to learn and take advantage of some of these certification programs. The Grow with Google certification program, I think, is a few $100s, which, I mean, it is an investment, but I think there's a starting salary coming out of that of like $60K or something like that. Again, that's depending on where you are, that may not be that much, but I mean, there's also, starting, right? Like for a few $100s and a few months of instruction. And so that's just one that I'm familiar with, and one that we also have been able to provide opportunities for our fellows. But there are plenty, and so I think we can definitely do our due diligence and do some research on what those look like. But I mean, I can just speak to that one too.
If I can, go ahead, Lawrence.
I was going to say Boot Up.
Boot Up and so Boot Up, my buddy Chandler Malone started a company that helps people get certified as different kinds of tech engineers via connecting them with boot camp programs. And then probably one of the other things I would say is you're 100% correct. The pandemic sparked something that people are calling the Great Reshuffle or the Great Resignation. So you've got tons of people figuring out that they not only didn't like their jobs, but they want to get into a job that pays them more and is more purposeful. You've got a lot of older people trying to switch into the tech industry. So those certifications are going to be absolutely key.
If I can add one more thing, so Chandler's organization, Boot Up, I got to shout them out. They do amazing work. Hoberton again. I also know the Google certifications. I'm gonna be honest with you. I did 2 of them myself, and I thought they were a great opportunity. I will add that Tulsa Community College also has a couple of certifications that they offer for our seasoned learners. I think that's where we settled in on. I'm working with them. We're starting some conversations about how we can help support individuals, but also I'm a firm believer in cohort learning. And when we learn together, I can support Cedric when you get stuck, and vice versa. And so we're having some conversations on how we could provide these opportunities, but also do so in such a way that you're not having to do it by yourself, that you know that you have at least one other person you can tap on the shoulder and get the support that you need.
One last one I want to add into is Foundry College. They are a program that is offering certifications in project management and Salesforce. In as little as 9 months, you could come out with that certification. And for Tulsans, it is completely free right now. So if that's a program that you are interested in, you can definitely find out some more at foundrycollege.org. So many programs for not only our babies, but also for people who would like to learn or reskill and get into the technology field.
I'm Beverly Ball. I just wanted to ask, hey, Michael, I just wanted to ask you all, will you be giving out your links to those programs that are online for younger people? You called out quite a few, but we don't have that information. Like, can it be put on screen, or can you all share it after you all finish speaking, so that we can share it with our grandchildren?
Yeah, we'll be happy to stick around for a little bit after, and if there's any specific programs that you want to ask us about, we can share. And
absolutely.
Michael?
Yeah, absolutely. urbancodersguild.org. I have some cards I can pass out as well.
Got some cards. Go and get the cards.
I think Cedric with thunderfellows.org.
Yeah, thunderfellows.org, yep.
Okay, so one other question. We have 2 other questions. These will be our last 2 questions right here. One here and then one in the back.
We got 2. We've got to move on.
Okay, yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you so much. This presentation was amazing. I liked what you said, Lawrence, about getting in front of ownership, in front of innovation. Also like what you said, Tyrants, about you don't have to be technical to, have a tech company. My question is, for those tech startups or tech companies, what resources or roadmaps do you recommend for them?
So Tulsa's actually been doing a lot for tech entrepreneurs. So you've got different programs to help support tech businesses. You've got accelerators like Act House, Lightship, Techstars is actually coming to town. Build in Tulsa, is actually getting a entire entrepreneurial journey for people from beginning to end. Builders and Backers that gives you $5,000 to explore an idea. We're actually exploring a partnership with them of helping Black people actually seed their Black tech ideas. But if you plug into the Tulsa ecosystem, there's a lot of energy around tech right now. And people who are trying to figure out how do we support Black entrepreneurs at every stage of their journey.
And if you have a great idea, you can always pitch me.
Yeah, he's an investor. Pitch him.
Okay, we have one more question.
Hello. So my name is Bettina, and my question was, you said your focus for tech would be collaboration and wealth. So what are your ways on wanting to collaborate with other communities that may want to invest in your community?
So you mean other communities like outside of Tulsa?
Can I hear me? Okay. Yeah, for example, you know, investing into a community outside, I feel like, I mean, tech is definitely the new oil in this age. So, you know, number one is cybersecurity. I mean, in my case, if I was to start a business, that would be my number one priority is the cybersecurity, and especially if I was to invest in future businesses around the world, that would be their concern as well. So, and not just, you know, platforms are great, but, you know, if we're trying to instill in our future, then, you know, the younger people would be the ones to understand how to go about that, in my opinion. But you guys, you know, your vision for the youth, I believe that's where it's at, and they're the ones that know. So, kind of went on a little spur, but back to the main point, like I said, anybody outside of your community who would want to invest, what would that look like as far as cybersecurity?
So in terms of cybersecurity, Black Tech Street is actually working on a pretty interesting partnership with Microsoft in getting black people, you know, certified in cybersecurity. So there'll be some more on that coming down the pipe. In terms of other communities, Tulsa's been able to broker relationships with both Miami. Miami's becoming a big tech hub right now. A lot of hype around Miami. I mean, other than that, because it's Miami, you know, there's not too much you got to fight there. But Miami, there's great partnerships being brokered there. And then there's also one with Northwest Arkansas that we've been trying to broker for a while. I think Attentive actually just spun up, you know, an angel fund with Northwest Arkansas. So when it comes to collaboration with inner communities, you know, I would say Tulsa's still in the stage where we're trying to figure out how best to collaborate locally, but, you know, that thought is out there. And when it comes to cybersecurity, I think cybersecurity may end up being kind of the bread and butter of entrepreneurs here in Tulsa. It's already one of the 4 identified tech niches by another organization called Tulsa Innovation Labs.
Well, I have one thought that I want us to close with, and the question is, imagine that we are in a successful rebirth of Black Wall Street through technology. My question to you all is, what does Greenwood or Black Tulsa more broadly look like after we've been successful?
I mean, I'll take it. I'll start it. An increase of wealth and security for the residents of Black Tulsa. I mean, that's what it really comes down to, right? I mean, we talk about all this other stuff, but it really comes down to economic generation, wealth creation for residents of, you know, Black Tulsa, North Tulsa, Black Wall Street. At the end of the day, whether it's jobs, ownership in a company, whatever it is, it comes back to that thing right there to make sure that our families are secure for generations to come.
Yeah, you know, there's this, well, in terms of Greenwood physically, obviously, I think a much more beautified and, you know, community that is built around tech. But in terms of the spirit, I always saw this meme that has always stuck with me. It was this black woman. She had colored hair. She had a lab coat on, and it said, look at this post. This is what a scientist looks like. So what I envision once we've achieved that, I envision a new image that shows that where black people are synonymous with tech and innovation as we are with sports and entertainment today. I see a spirit where that is embodied. I see young black kids, you know, getting that starry-eyed thinking about, you know, I might be the one that actually puts somebody, I might be the one that invents interstellar travel or something like that. That's way off, you know, that's just an example, but I'm saying it goes beyond just technology. Technology is this medium to unshackle black creativity. And when I see the whole ultimate vision, Black Wall Street, Black Tech Street, I see this community where these black people are just growing up, taking stuff apart like Michael did. We're out here building rockets. We're out here figuring out, we're solving our own problems because we have that capacity. So it's hard to describe. I mean, in one word, I would say it's Wakanda. So I mean, you know, that's what I would say.
And I'll just add to that, and I think scholastically, looking at the gaps that exist in our schools, I'm thinking about having the schools that have all the access to the highest tech tools and resources, so that our students and our next generation of kids have the opportunity to be able to do whatever it is they want. And then, of course, the ability to pass wealth intergenerationally. So, but that's
Okay.
If I can just answer real quick.
Go
All
ahead.
right, I'm gonna piggyback off what you said. I don't think that it should necessarily be a lottery to get into the good, quote unquote, good schools in Tulsa. So I think about, right? I think about some very real, tangible aspects. I'm from North Tulsa, deep North Tulsa, and so I think about, having, being able to move up that ladder in terms of what we think about what's possible for us, and being able to actually build a community that has active businesses, that has, economic development, visible economic development, but spiritually and emotionally, just unshackled. I think that was the word that I heard that really stuck out. Our students unshackled by their environment, their creativity, their curiosity fueled. And so you mentioned space travel. If you want to be an astronaut, and that's actually what I want to do when I was a kid, that there is no limitation on that. And when you walk out into the world, you feel and see that Black excellence. So it's not some far-fetched dream to be an astronaut. It is, Cedric, I'm going to NASA.
Thank you guys so much. Can we give a hand?
Yeah, big hand. Come on now, give it up. It was good. Let's thank the Terrence Crutcher Foundation. Hand for them for putting on this Legacy Fest. JB, what do you think, man?
Hey, man, I think Brenham and the whole crew, Tyrant, Cedric, Lawrence, Michael, y'all give them another round of applause there. Amazing. This tech thing, man, like the one thing I learned is like not just the young people need to know about it, but the older people want to know about it too. How you feel about that, Bobby?
Man, you said it, man. I'm a techie kind of guy, and I learned from you.
You got a lot of gadgets?
Yeah, a lot of gadgets.
Y'all give it up for Mr. Bobby Eaton, KBOB 89.9 again. Techie guy.
Tech.
Check out his radio station. It's on 24/7 live all around Tulsa.
Yeah.
All right? Again, your panel. Coming up next, we got a great panel. It's called Rebuilding Greenwood. Now, this is the meat and potatoes right here. The one everybody wants to talk
steak and
about.
potatoes.
We got Vanessa Hall Harper coming up. We got Thomas Boxley, Jonathan Butler, and Greg Robinson's going to be moderating this one. So that's crazy. Standpipe Hill Strategies. What do you think about that?
It's going to be good.
It's going to be good.
It's going to be real good. So
Okay.
stick around.
Stick around, guys. Thank you for tuning in. We're live from Black Wall Street right here at the Black Wall Street Legacy Summit, live from Greenwood Cultural Center.
Right. And if you guys want to get some names and numbers and websites address, these guys are going to stick around for a minute, and they're going to give it to you. Okay?